Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies,
and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance of the Constitution
and allegiance to the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon
the duties upon
which I am about to enter.
which I am about to enter.
I further affirm
I further affirm
that I will abide by
that I will abide by
and maintain the confidentiality
and maintain the confidentiality
of the personnel files
of the personnel files
of sworn employees
of sworn employees
of the police department
of the police department
and all other matters
and all other matters
that are confidential
that are confidential
pursuant to state
pursuant to state
and federal law.
and federal law.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome to the board.
Appreciate it.
All right, and now we do provide an opportunity for the board member to give a gentle introduction to the board and the community.
Hi, I'm Randy Wells. A member of the Berkeley community. I live in District 8 with Councilmember Humbert as my council member. I am both a father, entrepreneur, and very interested in serving on this board and ensuring that we have effective and safe public safety for our community. And I look forward to working with my fellow board members. Thank you.
And will the agenda be approved?
Are there any objections to that motion? Seeing or hearing none, the agenda is approved. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. As a reminder, speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, but may be allotted less time if there are many speakers. They may comment on any matter within the board's jurisdiction at this time, except confidential personnel matters. I will start with those who are physically present first before moving on to our virtual attendees. Okay. One moment, just so I get the timer up. At this time, are there any members of the public that would like to provide public comment? No. Seeing or hearing none from those physically present, I'll now go on to our virtual attendees. Anybody attending virtually, would you like to provide public comment? Vice Chair, at this time, I see no hands raised. On the motion to approve the minutes, motion by Board Member Leftwich and seconded by Board Member Calavita. Are there any objections on the motion to approve the minutes? Seeing or hearing none, the minutes are approved.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Today I'd like to start the staff report by yielding my time to our new Deputy City Manager, and not necessarily new to the city. He's returning back. He's had a busy week, so we put him on the agenda first for his introduction, and then we want to appreciate the partnership and the immediacy of and that you have in terms of making your schedule available to us and come to this meeting. So I just want to yield the time now to the staff report so you can give an introduction to the community.
So, my name is White, and I'm Deputy City Manager for me, this is a real special moment. So I'll give you a little bit of history of myself. So prior to coming back to Berkeley, I was city manager for the city of Santa Monica. And prior to that, I was deputy city manager for the city of Berkeley. And one of my highlights of my career and achievements was working towards the charter amendment that created police accountability. So As I was leaving, we were starting to work with Captain D and the implementation of this body coming to life. So it's a real gift for me tonight to be in front of you, to see everything that has come together with Berkeley Aguilar and all of you guys members. So I'm really excited to see that this training is continuing. But just a little bit about myself, and what I'll be doing for the city. So I had a chance to work with two board members earlier today. I'll be assisting our city attorney and the team on the development of the permanent regulation accountability board. So what I got to work on, continue. I'm also going to oversee a number of different departments in the city, including housing and human services, community services development, human resources, finance, IT, Parks and Rec, Public Works, oversee our budget division, oversee our neighborhood services division as well. Also, with the DEI team, as well as our police reimagining team as well. So I'm sure I'll have many opportunities to be in front of you and work with all of you. So I'm really looking forward to that. Prior to working for the city of Berkeley, I worked for the city of Berkeley, I was city manager for 15 years, serving in the last 5 years as city manager. So a long career in public service and government. Prior to that, did some work in the private sector, investment banking, urban economics and real estate consulting, so things we dabble in a lot. My career, absolutely loved it. But there's no better or more special person in building work. So I'm really happy I got a chance to return, really happy to be in front of all of you. So certainly if you have any questions about myself, I'm happy to answer them, but I appreciate Director Aguilar giving me a minute on week number 2. Just spend a few moments and introduce myself, that I'm sure we'll be able to develop. Any questions about myself? If not, I have some other meetings. Again, just wanted to not be unfamiliar. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Vice Chair, I don't know if we have.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, did you have questions or? Okay. Yeah, just quick updates on different items. And I don't want to get ahead of too many items because some of them are related to the agenda items, but as you know, the police department went before council with their annual report. They received a lot of positive feedback, so I just want to highlight that partnership, the ongoing partnership with the police department. And I also did have an opportunity in between sessions, between meetings, to go to a conference at the UC Berkeley Law, where they were talking about AI in the public safety context. And there were different roundtables, and I in the roundtable I was in, there was a lot of envy about the transparency that Berkeley's displaying. So I just want to make that publicly known. Particularly, I was in a table where we're talking about AOPR data, and at the last meeting, I mentioned that our Transparency Hub has a particular page where they put the data there, and it seemed like other jurisdictions didn't have that. And I was at a table with some public defenders who were very interested in being able to have that data publicly available. So I just want to say kudos on that transparency for us. The other quick items, we have sent the last batch of letters and resolutions to council, so they should be in the April agendas. There is also the public safety committee discussion coming up. Do you have the we'll pull up the date, but there is the public safety committee discussion that is going to cap off the conversation about the downtown task force report, excuse me, and then before it goes to full council. So we'll provide that date. I normally have our investigator, Jason Wechter, do the NACL updates. There are some webinars that will provide to you so you can have that information available if you want to participate. You're always welcome to come to our office and watch them. We'll be on the lookout for those updates. And I'll yield back to the board if they have any questions for us.
We just wanted to clarify the public safety committee that's coming up. You mentioned that was to finalize the downtown task force report. So did you mean fair and impartial? Because I think there was an agreement that we were going to work with the department to sort of try to reach an agreement about additional reporting.
Fair and impartial.
Well, but there is a resolution that I thought that the chair of Councilmember Blackaby was gonna present, but I could get clarification. Is that not on the agenda for?
The next meeting isn't scheduled yet.
The next meeting is scheduled, but I thought that there was, because they voted for negative resolution and they were gonna have some language about it, so it can go to council and it can have.
Oh, on the downtown.
Correct.
Because we have a to-do related to fair.
Right, I don't think that was closed off yet.
So it's just the resolution that's coming before the Public Safety Committee. They already voted not to send a positive report forward to council on the reports, the downtown task force report. So the next meeting, it will only be about voting on an alternative resolution that's being put forward by Blackaby.
Yes, and so that council could get context as to what in the report or what the further action is to close that conversation, could make its way out of that public safety committee back to full council.
Fun.
Yes.
Okay, Karen. I reports. All right, move on to the report. Do we have someone with us or?
The deputy chief is there with us.
Guys, sorry about that. I can't, I think the audio or the mic for the vice chair wasn't coming through.
Oh.
Am I up?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. And I apologize for that. I'm going to start out with a few cases of interest. On March 9th, in the morning, we had a couple individuals steal some property from the University on Target, the Target on University Ave. Security guards flagged down an officer who was outside, and they were able to detain one of the suspects with the stolen property. They alerted officers that there's a second suspect who was still inside. They were able to apprehend that individual and recover the property. Of note, he had provided false information about his name and didn't have any identification on him. He was booked into our jail, and his fingerprints came back with an active parole warrant out of Oakland for a homicide stemming from a 1998 murder. And the warrant had been issued on September 23rd, so he had been evading arrest all that time. On March 13th, we had a domestic violence incident in the 1500 block of Russell Street that involved a barricaded individual. This came in about 6:57 in the evening, and officers went to take the report, and they found a pregnant victim who had injuries. She said that she had been physically assaulted by a suspect who had also taken some property from her and barricaded himself in his house. Of note with this, we had a negotiator go out to facilitate communication while our detectives prepared a search warrant for the residents, and a sergeant coordinated officers and logistics on the scene. And through their very patient, diligent work, they were able to engage with the suspect for more than an hour in dialogue, where he finally surrendered peacefully. And I just wanted to say that this incident highlights the exceptional work of the officers involved, again, with their patients, their active listening and rapport building. And these methods were able to peacefully resolve a potentially dangerous situation without the use of force. There was an outstanding question last week that I'll sort of carve into this related to flock. And I'll say that I was able to successfully find our ALPR data on our Transparency Hub. And we had about 3,000 hits in the past 30 days. And we estimate that we've had about 20 arrests. I don't have the exact number, but since we implemented the program at the end of last year. And of note, also on March 13th, we had 2 flock hits. One at 9:46 in the morning, where we got notification that a stolen blue Chevy HHR was traveling through Berkeley. About an hour and a half later, officers located the occupied vehicle at 8th and Dwight and did a traffic stop. Individual was compliant and was arrested for being in possession of the stolen vehicle. And then just about an hour later, we had another notification that there was a stolen black Honda CRV on Grizzly Peak in Shasta, and our officers located it at 6th and Uni, and they were able to do a traffic stop, and the driver was also arrested without incident. So 2 success stories in a very short period of time on one day. Community events, we have a Coffee with a Cop event happening on Tuesday the 25th at Penelope's Coffee and Tea at 2255 Shattuck. And we'll be hosting that from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. As far as staffing is concerned, a little bit of an update there. Current staffing is 148 officers with 6 recruits in the police academy. 1 new recruit is going to start working with us in the office on April 14th until we have another academy date available in April. And the chief just extended a conditional offer today to an academy graduate. They're just pending medical and psych evals for their background investigation. We have 5 police officer recruits and 1 lateral candidate currently in backgrounds. And then we have a full day of police officer recruit interviews scheduled for tomorrow with 12 applicants. And this has a lot to do with All-Star. For those of you who were able to hear our update regarding All-Star recruiting, they have really changed our trajectory with our events. We've had about 6,500 individuals come through as interested applicants since we started our program with them in August. So that's going very well. And we have billboard ads that are up. They went up on March 10th. This is a new recruiting tool for us. We've tried it one other time, and we have 1 billboard for a police officer and 1 for dispatch. And this is also connected to our 30 by 30 work, where we're featuring women in the law enforcement profession. And I think we had request from Chair Cayetano regarding our mutual aid agreements. And I just wanted to say, now that we have the annual report behind us, I will be working on getting that information over regarding the MOUs in the next couple of days. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions for you. I see. First has to do with the specialized care unit. And the issue has come up in the past that one of the obstacles to utilization of the SCU is that they have a separate phone number and it doesn't go through dispatch. And I know there were inquiries about if that could happen, that SCU calls could go through dispatch. And I wondered if you had anything to report about that.
So we have had that conversation, and in the process of setting that up, there are a couple things related to staffing. As far as the SCU calls coming through dispatch, the number of calls that our dispatchers would be taking. And also it raises some liability issues, and that if we're getting a call to the police department regarding something involving a mental health crisis, is there liability for the police department to not send an officer to that call and what that looks like? There's certainly ongoing conversations about what that might look like. But that's sort of where we are today.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, regarding the training videos, Lieutenant Montgomery, who attended our meetings for a while, had suggested that there were some training videos that our boards could watch. And I just wanted to follow up on that because I think that would be useful for us.
You're talking about the post-training videos?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to look into that.
thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. And I'm interested in the ALTR, report that you talked about of the transparency hub and the 3,000 hits. And could you remind us what it means to get a hit and how they're dealt with and how the 20 arrests that came out of that transpired? Like, that works from the hit to forward.
So I'm having a really hard time hearing you. I understand that you're asking about the hits on the ALPR data. What I can share is that we get hits related to stolen vehicles, vehicles that are wanted for carjackings, any kind of amber alerts, blue alerts, anything like that. And so when we're talking about getting a hit, those are the things that are triggering the system that are alerting officers of a potential wanted vehicle. And if someone who is closer to a microphone might be able to repeat the rest of it, I'm happy to address it.
I don't know. Wait, are these our microphones?
Usually we.
Yeah, so right now we're just having technical issues where this one is on and that one isn't paired. So can you move it a little closer to compare up, please? So this one is the one that's actively, Deputy Chief, can you hear me fine?
I can hear you great.
Okay, Deputy Chief, I was just wondering, so 3,000 hits, that is of specific vehicles, specific license plates?
Yeah, those are vehicles who are on a hot list, if you will, that have been entered into the stolen vehicle system statewide that come up as wanted vehicles for various things, such as carjackings, stolen vehicles, could be missing license plates, missing persons, kidnapping suspects, things of that nature. Those are what the hits are.
So I'm just curious, 3,000 hits ended up with 20 arrests. Seems like a big difference there. Can you talk about that?
Sure. We don't always have the ability to go directly. So the hits can come up. We might not always get the alert. So I would have to dive into whether or not the number that we're publishing is also related to missing license plates, because some of those things, if we're in a priority one call, we're not gonna have an officer go and canvass the area for a vehicle that could have a stolen license plate. So these are also things where if we have a stolen car and we have officers available to go and look for the vehicle, we might not find it. So you can have a bunch of hits, but either we didn't have the resources, we're unable to locate the vehicle, or it turned into something that is not pursuable. So they flee from us and then we can't chase it. And that would indicate that that sort of difference between the number of hits and the number of arrests, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes, also, just a brief follow-up, were there any hits that turned out to be errors?
I can look into that. I don't have that data in front of me.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great, and any other question for the deputy chief? Yeah.
If I may, Deputy Chief, just to see clarification, the recruit that is waiting for an academy, are they a community service officer for now, or they're still in recruit status? Like, what sort of duties do they do while they're waiting for the academy?
So generally, we'll bring them in, we'll get them outfitted for uniforms and do all of that. We start getting them familiar with the department, the city, our policies, and just give them general exposure, perhaps some admin work. We're talking about just a handful of weeks until that academy is available. And what we have found is it's important for us to not lose viable applicants who might be in the pipeline with another agency. So being able to hire them and get them in the door and get them familiar with us and start that work prior to an academy has been beneficial because then we don't lose them.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And just as a quick follow-up, have you seen any success in getting folks in, like doing pre-academy work before they're formally, as opposed to folks that are like ready to go right when the academy is there, or?
By and large, we're hiring people just on the heels of going into an academy.
Okay.
Anything else?
One moment. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Deputy Chief. And for the record, we're just noting that Chair Cayetano arrived at our meeting at 6:57. So he'll be resuming his chair duties.
Yes. Hello, good evening, everyone. Congrats to our new board member, Randy Well. Sorry, I missed your inauguration. You can do it again if you like. Where are we at? Okay. Can I give a quick chair report or no? No, too late. Okay, we'll wait. I'm not. Too late. Okay, let's go to subcommittee report. I'll weave it in some.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. As always, I'll go down the list of our subcommittee list, starting with regulations.
For the first few sections of our regulation. And I understand that the closed session might have more discussion. That's it.
Okay, fair and impartial policing implementation.
Behavior, finally, and hopefully as we fill back to reporting on FITV, including the quarterly update from the department and data reporting. So we're going to need this one.
Thank you.
I don't know, I'm gonna share, but I did meet with people that's about this. You don't have to get that, so during this item, it makes sense to say that thanks to the chief for meeting with me on this and Vice Chair Wilson's meeting was a product of that.
Okay. Surveillance technology policy. I know there's a vacancy on that. No update. Corner of Calavita. Okay. Yes. Okay, moving on to the downtown task force and bike unit allegations.
Oh.
Yeah.
Chair that. Go to our downtown task force report.
Okay. Policy review subcommittee.
Quick.
Oh,
And
sorry.
Chair, because you weren't here for that, is that your understand as well? That the next public safety committee, board member, excuse me, council member, Blackerby will be putting forth a resolution to cap off the downtown task force. Okay.
Okay, policy review subcommittee.
Well, I think it was 2 meetings ago. approved of our sub recommendations regarding the vehicle pursuits policy. And those recommendations were forwarded, I believe, to the city manager and to the city council, perhaps the city manager, chair, and just the city manager. And I think our plan was to draft a more comprehensive memo to send to council. And I don't know if we've heard anything back since we met. Haven't heard anything back.
Okay. What's up, Bill?
We may have a live mic in the room. No.
Okay,
And while we're doing that, I do have a calendar invite for the Public Safety Committee for Monday, March 24th at 10:30 a.m. So just putting that on the record because I know there was some confusion about the next one. It's not posted yet on the Public Safety Committee website.
Well, definitely not.
They're gonna table that. Until after we discuss.
okay, moving on to metrics and operations.
Yes.
Okay, so, then I'll be able to report Eric on that. I think we did want to swap out members too, and get a compensated. But they make their report up at this point.
Let's deal with it. You're at a good item.
Okay.
Okay. Outreach and engagement currently doesn't have any members. And for BPD policies 1010 and 1034, board member Williams is currently out on a leave of absence, so there'll be no report at this time. For our liaison list and policy complaint reviews.
Sorry, that's me. Liaison list, no updates on that, other than the fact that, actually, I do have an update, sorry. I met with, Officer Neil Egbert, who is the head of the association, the union, EPA. And we discussed the EIS policy, we're on the same page about the need for a policy. A model, I sent him SFPD's EIS policy just to start a conversation with him. Because I understand that these negotiations take a while. And I also sent him a draft public report from SFPD that I'm hoping that we can adopt here. So TBD on the product of all, but you know, it's in the works.
Thank you, Chair. Now our policy complaint reviews. Board Member Calavita, do you have any report?
Policy review. I think we can find that report this month.
Thank you. With that, Chair concludes our subcommittee reports.
Okay, item 10A. Subcommittees. I think my third agenda item we put up Clark's now because we have a new board member Wells. And unfortunately, at the time that board member Wells came on, we had a leave of absence in board member William, and so we are still at 5. And so you might be surprised to hear this, but it means because we're at 5, we can't have 3 on a subcommittee. Okay. So we're gonna have a little bit of different like temporary restructuring until we can get to 6 again. But I want to like go through the list again and identify which subcommittees we can close out. And my understanding is that board member Wells wants to go into the operations and budget so we can work when that comes to that. Making that item, we can work that in. But if you are interested, like right now, policy has 2, so we can't have a third. Yeah. That's fine.
until we have it fixed. So, but if you have another one that's on your mind right now, then feel free to jump in, but let's just go through the list. And we can weigh in as each item goes.
Okay.
Again.
Again, forward elimination of Karen versus routine. I don't think it requires having to be eliminated in that process. And tracking.
Agree with that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The way it's the way that you want to, if you don't mind, okay? Because if we're gonna track our city, we want to track them with the subcommittee, not that we.
I would like to propose that we're eliminating the subcommittee.
And sorry, could I just get a formal motion since we'll be disbanding the committee? Okay,
There any objections to that? And then,
But and surveillance technologies and policy review. I mean,
I don't know what the status of the 1010 is.
they have.
1034. Okay, so that one's now, well, Williams, from Williams is on the. Yeah. So we could temporarily put that one on pause until we come back.
And folks remind us what 10 are.
Those are the policies associated with the internal affairs, and the complaint hearing process. But also the hearing process internally. So it does make sense because we're still doing the regulations discussion and may or may not impact that language. So they should be synced up with that process.
Say that last sentence again.
That the policies should probably hold off the review until we finalize the regulations, just so we're not changing it needlessly.
Okay, let's close that. Let's close that. Close it. Okay. I have a suggestion for board member Well, so. It would be great if you would take my place on metrics and operations, which is also the budget subcommittee. Okay, sub out for me, and then if you join me on outreach and engagement. Because
sorry, just in terms of keeping it clean for the minutes, could we process the motions of the ones that we want to close before we get to the appointments? It's for the,
meeting and then.
yeah,
Policy.
I second.
okay. And are there any objections to that motion? No objections. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Saying, will take my place on the metrics and operations committee, if he agrees. Agreed. Okay, and then we will create the outreach and engagement committee together. And so, then we can reorganize and have a 6 member and you can go. Cool, so that sound good, Emily? Okay, let's. You wanna make your first motion?
Motion to add my name to the metrics and operations committee, we move in the chair. And a motion to add my name as well as the chair to the Outreach and Engagement Committee.
Second.
Okay, and are there any objections to that motion?
Neither. I don't hear collaboration. Great. Let's talk about the surveillance technology policy, which I think is about there. I'm putting on the spot.
I don't get it, well, that's, I don't, if I would want to, that's years ago, so that.
I think it's a historical artifact of that time. And I'm the only one who I think it would be for the moment. I believe.
Yeah, this doesn't mean that we're gonna remove ourselves from talking.
No, but it's on the agenda for tonight. for
Exactly.
example, But we don't need to stop.
Exactly, and everyone would make that clear for the record. Okay, great. Is everyone, is there any disagreement with that? Okay, can we get a motion?
Because we had these discussions as a committee of the whole.
And, okay, and are there, oh, sorry, are there any objections to that motion?
No.
Okay, motion carries.
Let's do it. Yeah. Yeah, okay, I'll move that the vice chair be added. We recommend as the PAB liaison for the FIT process.
Are there any objections to that motion?
No.
Okay, seeing or hearing none.
Not sure how we do that, but members of the public who are out there, spread the word.
We're very grateful that we have been saying on this. Oh, it's a subcommittee. That's a lot.
Oh, yeah, we have, before we move to the next item, we have opening, but I've again talked with the students that who are smart and eager, and they want to help with policy work, and they're plugging in for students into that work right now. And so if other board members have interesting items related to policy that they would like us to research, for example, surveillance policy, things of that nature, then please let me know, because I'm the one who's communicating with them. Right now, they're the one, they're helping us research body cameron, best practices in different jurisdictions, and a couple things related to traffic safety in Berkeley.
Do you can supervise it?
I'm not their supervising attorney, I'm their assigning attorney. I would say
Who's supervising?
they have like a supervising attorney who's like their formal virtually appointed person. No.
Okay.
Yeah, this is for their programs. Unrelated to what our designation is. All right. It's just policy.
I was also wondering, well, I haven't looked into it, we do have it's a Goldman School of Public Policy here.
Good point.
And I was thinking perhaps some of those folks, particularly during a master's degree, I mean, I know when I was a law student, I was really busy. And law students are necessarily the best people, although we could certainly use all the help that we can get.
Yeah.
But perhaps someone at the School of Public Policy, I can look into that.
In the lava, as a JDF, I can tell you that policy students are reading too.
Well,
I a lot of it, like actually also, yeah, this project, but I think we keep patient. I have been successful, much to my chagrin, with my other daughter at getting anything interested in doing it with the State Bar of California. I think this would be of interest, so we could even pitch a project.
Yeah.
So I'll take that on.
Well, great, thanks.
And And one thing I don't think in there that James Chang, who is the chief of staff to Councilmember Bartlett, along as well, and also.
Oh, even our.
Yeah, that's addressing that too.
And also the former chair. And also the current student one who graduated, but if you need people to reach out to. Great, okay, that's what you want to talk about, but we're talking about the retreat, right? Getting people plugged in and all that. Good.
Mr. Chair, it's just a quick public service announcement, just to remind you to please speak up at all times. So sometimes the voice is fluctuating, so it might not always capture, but for now we're doing good. We're getting some live feedback from members watching.
Did they name me?
No, but
Okay, that's okay. Okay, let's go to 10B. On the agenda, discussion action on the PAB's review of the BPD's mutual aid agreements with other law enforcement agencies. I believe the director put this on.
yes, and before you arrived, the deputy chief informed us that now that they're on the other side of their annual report, they're expediting this to get to us. So we don't have confirmation yet that whether the 2018 ones are at the latest version, but just for the board members' purposes, between meetings, the chair did follow up and we received the response. So hopefully now they're gonna expedite this review and let us know so we can continue. I don't know how you want to proceed at this time.
Do we have any other information to provide on this item?
No, because we were just waiting to confirm this time.
Okay. Do you have the email that I sent pulled up or no? Because I could just review what I asked for.
Yeah, she said she's working on it.
Oh, great. Yeah, and thanks. I know that they have been very busy with their annual report, so I'm thankful that they're gonna get back to us on that. Okay. Last item, sorry, it's on this mutual aid, specifically because we're looking at ISP DHS. It is something that I know that the mayor of Sanctuary City Task Force has been interested in. And since I am sitting on that task force, I intend to bring to that task force the results of whatever discussion we have to the mayor and to that group. So, we can rest assured that there will be some forum for this, for what we're doing here. Okay. Any questions about that? No? Okay. 10C. Discussion and action on BPD's revised external fixed camera location and gender transition per BMT 2.99.030. Director.
Yes, so for board members and members of the public, in the packet before you, page 19, there is a memo that we authored. And what we were doing in essence is just flagging this item for you because it is an item that at one point or another it's going to require PAB review. Last night they had a very lively conversation at the council meeting. This was the item that drew a lot of attention for community members. Ultimately, they modified the resolution some, but they did approve the proposal. I just want to say for the record, and it's not a PAB stance, but we keep running into, it seems like, an issue with this BMC 299, what the process is. I was concerned, and I did go on the record saying that I believe we have a process issue. They were asking for two things at once. So they have noted that there are technical issues with being able to install the Edgeworth integration cameras. So I think last night the chief said only one camera has been installed, but there are other technical reasons why they need to look for a different vendor. But simultaneously, they had identified Flock Safety as that other vendor, and they were making the case that it integrates with the ALPRs. To me, that is a significant change in what the initial surveillance case was brought before council. So I thought that we needed to separate these out. And I made that publicly known. Ultimately, again, after debate and conversation and members of the public, the council did approve for the department to continue with the STO process. And they are looking at flock. So it's going to require PAB review. I just want to be clear about that. But I think yesterday was a good example why they should have been separated, because from the dais, some of the council members had questions about the capabilities of the new camera. Is it going to collect sound? The data retention. And so there's a lot of questions that we need to, as a board and oversight office, review when we're doing our use policy, if they have a new one. There was a lot of interest about the immigration and being able to potentially block any request from the federal government about that data. There was conversation about a potential kill switch. So the minute that the federal government starts asking for data, they'll potentially at that point say we'll stop the data collection. So again, a lot of things that need to be revisited. But for your purposes, the action already occurred. So what's going to happen next is that the police department is going to do their acquisition and use policy report, and then we're going to start that conversation before it goes back to council for full approval.
So it's been approved at some level.
It's been approved, right, with the preliminary identification of Flock Safety to be the replacement vendor of Edgeworth. But they still need to engage in the acquisition report process and the use policy process before they can start the actual installations. And then that part will be where the board gets to engage and have a conversation.
Do we have a timeline?
There is, it's specified in the BMC. It is time bound, but it's initiated at the point that they provide the policies and acquisition report to you. So then that's when the clock starts ticking. Can you verify real quick?
No, I'm wondering the timeline for them to get the report to us, to have their report done.
I can verify that. I don't believe so, but I think there's a lot of interest. And I think part of the simultaneous ask was that having a vendor identified kind of helps them streamline already the process. So, but I don't know if there's an exact date of when they need to get that to you.
And you were talking about the deadline is when they get something to us, then we have 30 days, right? That deadline's that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, but our request would always be for them to get it to us as soon as possible, because what's happened in the past is 30 days of implementation, I think is what the charter says, and this is just a proposal, so.
But they can't actually enforce it until this process is.
So the 30 days is for policy, but not for new acquisition and technology.
Meaning it's in their interest area, they can't do anything until they.
Right, I'm just wondering how, I just want to make sure we don't get up against the deadline when something else happens, we get something somewhat last minute and have to make a decision.
We will only have 30 days after they get it to us, which is not very long, given how complicated it is. We should give it to them.
And if I may, we have our deputy city attorney. I don't know if you want to weigh in or clean up on anything that I might have misstated.
I don't have anything to add at this time, but we can follow up offline if needed.
Okay, thank you.
So just for my own edification, is the issue both policy as well as the technical aspects that need to be reviewed? My understanding of reading this, and granted it's lightly, is just that there's a energy issue with the Edgeway cameras, which is the reason why there's a recommendation to move to flock cameras. But then with going with a new vendor flock, they need to meet our requirements around privacy.
Yes, and additional note to the history there, the council did already approve cameras, so like that, we're beyond that, but they're also requesting a change in locations because it could be duplicated because of the integration of where the cameras work, and they made a different assessment about egress into the city. So there's, I think, substantial changes to the initial approval which warrant that careful scrutiny by the board.
And did they approve, I'm sorry, I didn't attend that meeting last night, did they approve all those locations?
I want to yield to our city attorney's office if they have any comment on that.
I wasn't
I-
able,
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was that?
I was saying that I haven't yet reviewed last night's council meeting, so I can't speak to that at this time. But
Okay.
I can follow up.
Yeah, and that's a good question because there was opposition to one particular location in the university.
Yeah.
And I think I will need to review more closely what the item is. But again, I think all this can be subject to review during the acquisition and use policy process.
I thought like those locations were already.
Well, they were approved for Edgewood. So, but now that flock safety is also in place, their capabilities are different and it might be duplicative to have cameras in the same places.
There are a lot of different locations in this proposal. And so I'm just wondering, it's confusing to me what they approved, what still needs to be reviewed. Like, have they approved essentially the saturation of the ALPRs in the heavily trafficked exit and entry areas, as well as all of these heavy pedestrian areas? Is that a done thing? Has that been agreed to?
Yeah, so my understanding was that they have given the preliminary green light to begin the STO process with flock in mind. And I think the final approval of new location, it needs to be specified with their acquisition report and use policy why they will be there. So I don't know that they're set in stone yet, that aspect of it.
Can I ask a different question? 2.99.030D, but whenever we enter into an agreement with a non-city entity to acquire, share, or otherwise use surveillance technology, or extend a vendor's permission to share, that's when they need to go through this process. And so why isn't even the STO process okay? Vision.
Are you asking me? Or?
Maybe it's my misunderstanding of what the STO process is. Is the STO process them entering into an agreement, or is it them looking into entering into an agreement?
So which section were you looking at? 1D?
Yeah.
Okay, but I think this is where it needs just careful scrutiny from the city attorney's office. And to be clear, they did approve some elements of this, so they have reviewed it. But I think what my concern was, using new surveillance technology or using surveillance technology previously approved by the city council for a purpose or in a manner not previously approved by city council. So external surveillance cameras have been approved, and they were approved for edge work with a specific purpose in mind. Now, after analysis, crime data analysis, they're saying, and also because of the technical limitations that we have in the city and we can't install the previously approved cameras, now, hey, we have an opportunity to use the technology in a different way. So that was what my concern was, that we're using it in a manner not previously approved by city council.
So can we just look at I think we need clarity on what the resolution is of the city council adopted. What's in the packet says, initiate the process to transition from Edward to Floss. Then it says reallocate camera placements from quarters now served by the ALPR to high pedestrian traffic intersections. execute all necessary actions in compliance with applicable ordinances, submit a need acquisition report as required under the STO, and seek grant funding to execute. So I think that this is clear, right? However, the problem in my view is our STO is rather toothless, or it doesn't have any income if it's concurrent with actually moving forward towards implementation. Yeah, but that's not the structure, I don't think that's outlined. Is that the structure outlined in the order? No, so I think that's a bigger problem like for charter revision. As it currently stands, we need to wait to get this acquisition report from the department and do our analysis, understanding that they can be moving forward towards implementation at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
As I understand it, the deadline for the grant is Friday, this Friday.
Oh, they're fine.
Yeah.
So it is sort of,
That's my understanding.
yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, that's a big issue. It seems to me that our analysis comes after so much has already been agreed to, but, my other question is, did they talk last night? Because apparently the flock cameras are designed to be ALPR type cameras, which is to obviously get license plate detail. So what's to say that they don't also do facial recognition? Because the city of Berkeley bans any facial recognition technology or process.
And that was a question that did come up last night. The council members were specific. I believe it's Councilmember O'Keefe that asked about that, and the chief reaffirmed that there is an ordinance prohibiting it, and that the current use policy doesn't allow for that. So that they indicate. Yeah, but I think some capabilities you can use and not use. So I think this is where it's gonna require some, again, careful review of which model specifically for external cameras are using. Because then that is gonna give us a little bit more idea and being able to articulate what exactly can or cannot be done. Because again, even the question about the sound, there were concerns about that, and we cannot definitively say that sound could be shut off, but we believe that that's a feature that could be shut off. So, yeah.
But is there a general understanding of how the flock camera system works?
The ALPRs or the external cameras?
The external.
I think there's a general understanding, but I think it also is important to specify which model, because then we can have a conversation about specifications and what the technology can or cannot do.
Can I just ask a different question? So the original, Edgewood Town were, the original people were in 2021, right? Right, yeah, that's what I read.
I believe it is.
That sounds about right. We can verify.
We're in 2025. So. That right.
Yesterday, I think what they said one was installed.
So, is part of that delay the STO process, like the STO process that happened with respect to the third round? I don't know, because I wasn't on the board, but.
But there were power issues. Yeah.
I don't the issue.
Well, the power issues are impacting certain areas, but I don't think the power issue is the issue for all of the city.
We approved it in 2019. People.
The use policy. Yeah.
I just think that's very problematic from a government and sort of city management perspective, like. The council's approving something and 4 years later, we have one camera. I don't know how many they approved, I think it was dozens of them. If I recall. So I just, raise that in this public forum, because I do think that's a different problem that a very real one.
The Friday deadline is to engage a vendor, is that right?
I'm not ready to confirm that.
I'm kind of.
So we will
trying
do
to-
more about
Support.
engaging.
Conviction.
And he could show.
Does he have to do?
This is what you're going to do. Here are some things we think the council might find if there was some guardrails, like, rather than should you do this and not do it.
Yeah, I think we have to work within the confines of the charter for now.
Right.
Also, with the other side of our mouth advocate. That's not as effective as it could be. And when that comes to us, we should deal with it. Especially with facial recognition. If Block has the ability to, use that to integrate the technology, and they haven't integrated that technology in other jurisdictions, but it's just a matter of sense, then we should put. We'll have to wait till we know more about the system's capabilities. Okay, are there any other comments on this? It seems like we don't have enough information to do anything at this point. It would be premature. We have questions about the ordinance and whether the process was followed correctly, and it seems like, based on our reading, it was. Is that right?
Whatever your assessment is might be different than ours, but I feel like there was some wiggle room there that was utilized. I don't know that the spirit would have required a simultaneous identification of specific vendor.
Okay, let me ask you a different question.
Okay,
Up to this point, has it always been the practice of the department to give us a report prior to going to council? To submit to us a use report?
if they're going through this process, yes.
And they didn't do that in this case?
Well, I think that the interpretation was that they didn't need to for the specific ask, that they were going to engage it after this initial green light. And that's where I think my assessment is, in my layman's interpretation of ordinance might be different.
No, I got that, but
Okay.
every other use that they've submitted it to us before they've gone to council.
Correct, when they're initiated the STO process, correct.
Okay, they go to council to alter vendors ever without going to us first when it comes to surveillance technology? No.
I don't know, I would have to look, I don't know that there had been too many of these processes. So we had external, and then we had the ALPR. But I don't know that there's any other ones where.
Okay, I mean, that history and context is important here, like talking about the spirit of the way it's followed, we should know that much, right?
Yeah, it just seems like there's two issues going on here. It's like, on the one hand, the Edgewood cameras are burning too much energy for the flat rate contract with PG&E. But then at the same time, if we were to move over to flat cameras, this new capability provides significant differences that is now expanding what the original intent was behind using the surveillance cameras.
Yes, I would agree with that assessment.
So that seems problematic, that it's not that we're just replacing one vendor with another to do the exact same thing. We're now replacing a vendor with another vendor to do even more.
Yeah, and an analogy I used, it was if a patrol vehicle breaks down, you don't replace it with a tank. You replace it with a comparable vehicle. So I just.
What about a cyber?
Okay.
That's very different.
But I think, what I would say is just that I think that distinction is known. And because of that, it should come back to us in a way in which we can provide proper oversight or review or an opinion in the spirit of collaboration and fairness, because it's not a one-for-one switch. It's not like they're saying like, we're just gonna go with flat cameras because they're more energy efficient and we're gonna do the exact same thing that the Edgewood cameras are doing. It's like, Now we want to add more capabilities and we want to add more streets and we want to have the capabilities of doing more things. And it's not clear in here that there's an understanding of what Flock's technology is. We understand what the capabilities are, but then when the question comes up, is it scanning people's faces? It depends on what model. Is it picking up license plates? It depends on what model. Which sounds like we don't know.
Yeah.
So I, at this point, we should probably just wait to see what we get when we take it from there, understanding our thought, but it's not one of strength. Given that
Yeah.
we've already got this through, so,
Yeah,
let's
fair.
see what we get.
Yeah, let's settle there and we'll come back to this when we have more information. Okay, let's go into 10D, discussion and possible action on BPD's 2024 annual report. Starting with the director.
Yeah, so we wrote a memo, very kind of the high level, and tried to do a quickly turnaround for your consideration. We did receive requests for specific items to be looked alongside, like the FIP report and recommendations. I'll reiterate, there was a lot of positive feedback and reception from the council as a whole about the work that the police department's doing. One council member indicated it, we are the gold standard of policing. And earlier on, I did share the anecdote that some departments, Councilmember Bartlett, I believe. And one of the things that I do want to point out, that AOPR transparency was something that other jurisdictions seem to be impressed about. So I do want to note that. But at the same time, I think there were some key questions in that even Board Member Calavita tonight was asking the Deputy Chief about what that AOPR data kind of means. During my comments last night, I was saying the capabilities of AOPR, asking you, is wide reaching. So if you look at the Transparency Hub in the last 30 days, there were 565,231 vehicles detected, right? So if that is its capabilities, since implementation, it's probably been a few million vehicles detected. So that is just something for us to be mindful about it. Like when they're presenting data on the efficacy and the efficiency of it, we just need to look at what's the denominator here. If we're looking at a million or so vehicles and it's yielding 14 arrests, I mean, it's a conversation about qualitative, quantitative, right? Like, I don't think we can take away the fact that they were able to close some crimes, some cases through the technology, but is it as efficient and is it yielding the outcomes that we were promoting it does? So I think those are the kind of things that require scrutiny. The vice chair noted and asked us to pull up a commentary regarding the veil of darkness, and there was a conversation about that last night at the presentation about the disparity rates and what the data is showing and not showing. And I think the department is comfortable with some of their analysis regarding outcomes on police. And so I'll stop there.
I see you have, in your memo, you have different recommendations. Okay.
Yeah, and to be clear, there's no explicit, I think, conversation that needs to be had with the department regarding their annual report. It's not the same review process, but if you as a body have some things that you want to opine on, then we were just kind of drawing attention on some of the things that can be looked at a little bit more closely.
You have no formal ask of us. This is just more background information with your thoughts, your initial thoughts.
Correct.
I had that, I didn't see it in the director's summary, but it stood out to me when I was reading it. And I'm not gonna have a page cited, but I saw buried in the middle of the paragraph, that BPD will begin to eliminate the level 1 use of force reporting requirements that we have been discussing. Well, I don't know if you saw that, but it's. Yeah, BPD wants to eliminate the level 1 use of force reporting requirement. Yes, exactly. And their, justification in here was, I can't find the page, but it was that to bring them aligned with other jurisdictions. And I think, with respect to that recommendation, we should analyze the impact of it on their reporting capabilities for different data that you rely on. And we should make a formal recommendation on that because it's been so much of interest.
So we're supposed to do a use of force annual review, right?
Yeah. And on top of that, we asked them to notify us whenever the policy changes is permitted. Yeah, well, no, well, yes, they are. Yeah.
And so we haven't scheduled the use of force annual review. No. Okay, so I think there are other issues that were brought up in the vehicle pursuits policy about some cross-referencing and some gaps in the use of force policy. So that's something we should figure out when we want to do that and institute it, on an annual basis so that we know that, when we're going to do that.
Yeah, and we were, there was a comment about that specific at the presentation about the sort of the reporting is not consistent, in which I think though also City Gate said that other departments don't report out as much about that. I didn't understand, from what I got from the chief's presentation, I didn't think it was something that was gonna be done without consultation, so I understood, and or maybe that was wishful thinking that the PAB was gonna be consulted and if that change is made, so.
Sometimes our meetings make me think that we should have the chief report at the end or have the chief stick around. And I know on the PRC, the chief would actually stay for our whole meeting because it seems like since she did her presentation and we cut her loose, there have been a handful of questions that we would have wanted to ask her. So maybe when it comes to something like questions we have on their report, maybe we could ask the deputy chief to come back, or just keep that in mind with our agendas about when either anticipate questions that we're going to ask that will come up later in the agenda and ask when the chief or her designee does the report, or ask that person to stick around because this does seem to come up. We have questions and then they're gone.
We could also track some of them now and ask them at our next meeting during each report, because this is not time for it. There's no action item associated with this.
No, but I'm sorry, I don't know if you were pivoting real quick, but just on the use of force, just the language on the report, it's on page 25 of the report, page 59 of our packet. It says, currently our department reports more use of force types than many comparable police agencies due to expansive level 1 reporting. We anticipate modifying our reporting practices in 2025 to better reflect common standards among peer agencies. So again, I thought when she was talking about that, from what I got, that they were going to engage if they make
Yeah,
them
well,
up.
I mean, conspicuously absent.
Right, and we don't want these things within 30 days of implementation. We want it in advance. We want to consult with them in advance. So that's something that, perhaps, I don't know if you could, I don't know the best way to proceed as far as making that clear.
I think we should ask about it during next meetings.
We can do it.
Time with the chief. Yeah.
We have to remember to do that.
Sorry, and the quick point I was going to make on use of force wasn't that one, was I think what could potentially be more helpful, I think that the way that the data is presented, I definitely agree that by many standards, they're using less force compared to the interactions, but I think to use the calls for service as the denominator is not the best way to approach this. When you get a call for taking a cat down from the tree, you're not gonna use a force, you're not gonna use force, I hope not. But what I'm saying is that there's different interactions that police have and that is captured by that, so really getting at the specific calls for service that may be more likely to yield use of force would be a better, fuller analysis there.
Yeah, I think the most exclusive number possible to
Right.
give them. I mean, this number is pretty low relative to other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Regardless of.
Right.
For sure. Any other comments on this report?
Yeah, so I appreciate your summary, Director. And on page 4 of the summary, it talks about use of force. Percentages, the percentage of arrests that involve use of force. So, and it concludes that because the percentage is comparable for African American subjects and white subjects, as well as other subjects, this suggests the report said there has become a decision to use force is determined by factors other than race, which I think is also problematic in a system in which Black individual pedestrians are stopped at 8 times the rate as white pedestrians. To say that the use of force statistics indicate that use of force has nothing to do with race, because when 8 times as many people in one group are being stopped, I have to imagine that they might be being stopped for different things. In other words, disproportionately non-violent things. In which case you would expect that the use of force would be lower. And I don't know, because it's been a long day. So I think that conclusion, they cannot draw the conclusion that race has nothing to do with it. In addition, you suggest that potential data points should include the total number of vehicles detected since the adoption of ALPRs, and I would say, I would add to that compared to before. No, it's the comparison between prior to ALPR and subsequent.
How many, the stops that the police department was now, or?
You're whenever you're looking at potential data points to consider.
Right.
Detected since the adoption of ALPR. I'm just saying it would be good to see the comparison between vehicles got prior and post ALPR.
Vehicle stops, right, okay, thank you, sure.
Just say one other thing, I was thinking about the changes to the use of force policy. Since we need to do the annual review and they're going to be presenting this to us hopefully before any changes, it would seem to me to be the right time for us to be making recommendations of our own, so we can do it at once. So maybe what I'll do is reach out to them and just say that the policy committee would like to engage with them on this and connection with our annual review.
The annual review.
Use of force policy, but we have to do.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
It's one option, and it's the option on the table, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll go ahead and reach out to them.
You know, another time we asked them, it's been a long time now, but another time we were talking about the level 1 use of force. And we asked to be shown.
Yeah.
They talked about.
Yeah.
How long it takes to do those reports, and I would be really interested to know. I mean, we just have no idea whether this is quick or whether it really takes a significant amount of time, in which case it's inefficient.
Yeah.
And we never heard back about that.
Maybe there's other ways to make the reporting.
Well, right.
I mean, that, Bob, I think you know how long it takes to have a level 1 use of force?
So you have some officers involved. We want to list all those officers. Simple, go to assembly, report, just having it on real quick. The movement. It's a little bit. So then a sergeant is tasked with sitting there and documenting all that, getting somebody from the officer, documenting that, and it goes, the sergeant, and she goes to the lieutenant looks at it, goes to the mail spot, and the body cam, so it goes to the captain. So there's a lot involved. This one.
So the writing of the report is not, you don't, and
Correct.
And for the patrol, like, you have like a low range to a high range.
It can reach 10 minutes to 30 minutes.
Okay.
And then a few times that, how many people after ownership.
And then the review on the back. Okay, it's good to know, but there could be like a technologically feasible way of making the review shorter. I'm not, I gotta know from you, but I'm just like, it's something we haven't looked into, I'm saying, and we should look into it, and the policy subcommittee is a good option for that. I don't think we had a better option, but I think we do have the annual requirement of reviewing the police force. Okay, any other comments on this annual report?
Just the global comment, which is with the previous item, the council have taken action, and then this process is going to be initiated with that. With this, there is no actual request or input or anything. So, so I struggle with that. I will say that I think the council, as a recurring theme that I see, needs to proactively articulate what its expectations are for reporting from the department. Because this report did not mention the city gate report other than to pick out this one recommendation they want to implement. The status of implementation of that report, that was a really important initiative, I thought, because it was going to determine the necessary staffing levels for the department. That report also recommended to transition work from officers to CSOs in very specific areas, some of which are outlined in the report, some of which aren't. The other glaring omission in the report is any mention of the SCU, the CIT, or any of those related calls for service. So given that those are important initiatives that I think the council has prioritized, I found those to be important, but they are not referenced in the report. The other thing is that the department is coming up with its own performance benchmarks, and I can't blame them for that because the council hasn't done it. But I do think the council should do it, including identifying which are the appropriate comparator jurisdictions to Berkeley. Those listed on the 41 packet are not the jurisdictions that CityGate identified in its analysis. So again, we need leadership from the council to help, I think, the department and us figure out what we're supposed to be doing. So those are my global comments, not specific to and
the other thing I noticed is they have a section on accountability. And I don't think I would have naturally mentioned that they, working with us. That's in our name. But I didn't see us mentioned anywhere in the report. And if I were them, I probably would have said that they've been working collaboratively with us on various syndicates ahead. So I thought it was funny to have a hidden accountability in each case.
I would say that at the meeting, the chief did talk about the ongoing partnership, so. I think one of the references, at least to our office, was regarding the internal affairs process, but I don't know that there was clear mention about the ongoing work.
They include in this annual report a list of, aggregated number of how many complaints and that they had against the Michigan Fund for internal affairs.
Yes. There is I just had it. It was regarding use of force. So what's your question now? Right, yeah, but I'm sorry.
That is very often. Like, every other. I shouldn't say every other, many other jurisdictions report on that, just like that very basic stuff. And I think they do have a quarterly. I don't know, they do have a reporting requirement for that or no? They include it in our aim for it, right? Director?
Yeah, they submitted to us and we included.
Okay, they just didn't want it in their, okay.
Sounds to me like we have a number of
Yeah,
recommendations, so perhaps what we could do, Director, if you're in a position to do that, would be to draft a short memo to the department and to council, just saying, we've reviewed their report and it has the following suggestions. It sounds like there are about 4 of them, maybe.
so, yeah.
Huh?
Were you guys taking notes during that conversation?
We'll review but there were a lot of things that I want to review the record closely. And is this like a formal ask that's going, do you want us to bring back the memo?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll bring it back next meeting.
Okay. I think that's good. Proud of this. And we had a lot of comments. Thank you all for reading that. I know that the director had a tight turnaround, and thank you, director, for giving us your analysis and staff. Really appreciate that. And thanks for weighing in on my question. I appreciate it. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next item.
Okay, public comment. As a friendly reminder, speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, but may be allotted less time if there are many speakers. They may comment on any matter within the board's jurisdiction at this time, except confidential personnel matters. I'll now start with those physically present before moving on to our virtual attendees. Okay, and 3 minutes on the clock. There we go. Let me move that out the way.
I read about the item that was on yesterday's council, about cameras. I had read with a number of council members about it. And it was interesting. I knew that there was a policy, but I didn't remember that part of that policy was that the PAB needed to be consulted in any way. And several of the council members wrote back to me, and none of them mentioned the PAB. And as you pointed out, there's no mention of PAB anywhere in the information that was presented to council. There was no mention in the original information about the fact that if you're taking pictures of people, there are risks that you should be thinking about. And I have to say I'm very discouraged at hearing what you said this evening about your not being able to say you can't move forward with this process until these things have been better resolved. The whole thing of we don't need to tell you about a policy until we're implementing it, and then we only have 30 days to do something, is really, really not in the spirit of what your job is. I don't know what can be done about that. But I think it's a really important thing that needs to be brought to the attention of the public as well as the council. And I really, really appreciate the work you're doing here with the sort of uphill struggle against this, what, frankly looks like intentional disempowerment. Thank you.
Thank you. There. Sorry, I struggled with the timer there for a second. Seeing no additional public comment from those physically present, I'll now move on to our virtual attendees. At this time, anybody attending over Zoom, if you'd like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand icon or press *9 if you're calling in. Chair, at this time, I see no additional hands raised. Okay. The webinar will continue to be open with audio and visual recording stopped. We'll be returning for closed session at the end of closed session. One.
Session, we met with the negotiators for the regulations and received legal advice from the city attorney, and we also received updates from staff on pending things. And with that, I believe that brings us to agenda item, whatever the closing is.
I second.
Great.